Sportsline podcast on the CHCH media platforms. I'm Bubba O'Neil. Thank you so much for joining us. Always appreciate you watching and listening. Hey, this has been a wild weekend and week of sports, so we have to go square off style and bring in my good buddy Jason Gaidola of CHCH News, anchor and reporter. And you were one of the guys I thought about all weekend because we'd had these talks leading up to what we thought was going to be a crazy weekend of football. Of course, that the NFL starting up, and then some college ball got all mixed in.
Crazy.
And let's just say it delivered.
This weekend there was some craziness, especially on Saturday with the NCAA football. NFL though, some teams look pretty good, some not so good, but I still think the hype of the NFL coming back, in the end it delivered, and it was there were some good games.
Well, they don't have Peter King has since retired, so Sports Illustrated no longer has a Monday morning quarterback. So let's make up our own. Yeah, sadly, after so many years, it was a column that had to be a must read. So let's just make up our own version. And there's some other things to mix in as well too that happened over the weekend. You ready to go?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Let's do it. Hey, the Professional Women's Hockey League released their first ever team logos and nicknames. That happened this morning, folks. They are the Boston Fleet, the Minnesota Frost, Victoria de Montreal, New York Sirens, Ottawa Charge, and Toronto Saptors. Is that the way you say it?
A scepter, I believe that's a spear, isn't it?
Your thoughts, sir, Jay?
Well, after such a great kickoff to an inaugural season, and with just the basic names, I think they dropped the ball here. There's getting the branding right of your franchises is super important in my books, and I just thought this just very under-delivered. And if you look at the logo, especially the design of the logos, now again maybe the exception of one or two there. The logo's got to be sleek. You don't want to make it look too cartoonish, and I think there's a little bit of a cartoon vibe to some of them there. One looks like the Calgary Flames, like.
Yeah, it does.
You can't, because in people's subconscious, they're going to think, when they look at that, that's what they'll think of. So super underwhelming what I'm seeing here, and to a league that's just getting their footing off. And you want to be able to connect with your fan base, and as much as you're still building your fan base, you want to be able to connect and go with something a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess classy. It doesn't bring classiness to what I'd like to see from a sports team, and that's just my personal preference. Besides maybe Montreal, I think Montreal's name's pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's a home run there.
Yeah,
that's the one home run.
I like the Montreal name. Boston Fleet's not bad, and the rest, I could probably say, let's do a redo.
I don't know the Frost because it's cold in Minnesota.
Sure.
Like, I don't know. No offense to anyone here, but what I'm about to say here, I think Sirens for New York. I automatically think like emergency services, 911. I don't get that one.
Yeah.
Ottawa Charge. I mean, government buildings and so much. I don't get that. And I totally agree with you about it looking like this Calgary Flames sort of something that someone said, hey, draw the Calgary Flames logo. And that's what they thought in their mind. That's what it looked like.
Yeah. You want to be able to steer away. Think about people's subconscious, because that's what they'll do. And and you can't, you want to be, if you're looking to build your own identity, you really have to stand out, and it's hard. I know they're trying to stand out, and I don't know who signed off on this, because as we know, the league is a single entity. So just like the CEBL, right? So everything's going to go through the league office.
For sure.
Granted, I don't know. Is it too late to change the names?
It's too late. I mean, they've done all their checks, and I'm sure they spent millions of dollars with some type of marketing company. I guess that would probably have they say, oh no, this is the way of the future, or this is the way they're going. I mean, and we got to think about the hometown one, the Toronto Scepters. I'm lost with that one, and I know we don't want to go to the usual the towers and things like that. I don't know. I just thought it was, and yeah, why is yellow and gold are a part of it? Toronto's always been like a double blue or in white, and maybe mixing some black somewhere. I'm lost, and I know you want to be different. And hey, you know what? 30 years ago, we went ballistic over by the name of the Raptors, right?
That's fair. That's a fair point.
You know, we did do that, so maybe we make too much of these nicknames. But boy, when they started to leak out stuff on Friday, I was really excited. And unfortunately, this morning when I saw these names and logos, I was like, really?
Yeah, the weird thing is that, and I may be wrong here, but I don't recall. Usually, there's always like an appeal to fans, a survey. You saw it with the Utah hockey team, and I believe you saw it with Seattle as well.
Kraken,
the
yes.
Kraken. Even though I'm still a little on the fence with that name as well, but that's the topic for another day. I don't recall seeing a fan survey going out and trying to appeal to your fan base to find out what would be a good name. You know, throw out a couple options, do a little digging on, you know, what stands. If you're looking for Toronto in particular, Toronto is such an evolving city, and I think there's numerous things that kind of frame its identity.
Yeah.
I think there could have been more work done. If we just want to stick to Toronto and just to that team alone, they could have. I believe they could have done a little. Like definitely, they could have done more. So appeal to your fans. Do those surveys. Do more than one survey.
Yeah.
You know, because you want to be able to get that name right. You see what's happening with the Edmonton Elks right now. I mean, granted, the name change was necessary, but well, it's amazing how what a name change does to a brand. So think about your brands. Right. Do a long work. You're probably better off going another season with how you had it as it is.
Yeah, it was tough saying PWHL, Toronto, and Montreal, etc. I get that. I understand you want to get your marketing out there. You want to start selling stuff. And on top of that, hey, they did everything right here. I love the way they released it. They had it on breakfast television, on another network, but the marketing of this was really well done. And the little sneak previews on Friday, I like that. It created conversation. Everything was done right, but I just thought everything else fell flat after the release of the nicknames. I can deal with the nicknames, I guess. But then the logos, I was like, the colors, I don't know. Anyway,
you don't want your logos looking like it looks like it should belong on a cartoon or a cartoon box or a cereal box, I should say.
Something like the XFL or something like that, where I'm like, a little underwhelming to me. What wasn't underwhelming was week 1 of the National Football League. It's underway, folks. Straight up, Jason, most exciting game or the game that thrilled you the most or the one that you're talking about still to this day?
I know you're probably going to be happy about this, but I really think the Bills was an unbelievable game. And think about, I was seeing how the Cardinals came out, and I knew there was some, they were kind of a hot pick going into the weekend. But I really thought that, Josh Allen, given the, Stephon Diggs is gone, and the offense is the way the offense is being built slightly different, and they have a couple new receivers. I thought Josh Allen really brought it, and I know that running style can be a concern long term, but I think this is his time to show that it's time for him to carry this team when they need him to carry this team on his back and look around, and he was spreading the ball pretty well as well.
9 different people.
I sense that the Bills are going to be a more run-committed team. Again, I like to see Josh Allen kind of reduce the running because you don't want to get hurt or anything. But the Bills they rallied, and they were at home, and it got off to a bad start. And I was thinking, I'm like, man, this is not the start that Bills fans want. Mm-mm. And I know there was some unhappy Bills fans on Twitter throughout the game. But as the game went on, they really showed that pedigree, that playoff team ability and toughness to get through the game and right down the stretch. And they mounted such a great comeback. The kids from Orchard Park. Hey, those guys are all right.
Yeah, they were really happy, and of course, it's again how you finish the game, not how you started. And it wasn't a great start. And I give the Cardinals all kinds of credit. You're on the road, hostile environment. Better part of 70,000 people, just all dressed in Bills colors, and there's wind blowing, and that's always a favorite for Buffalo fans and Buffalo players, and it's not for Arizona, who play in a controlled environment. So they came out well, and hey, they had a kickoff return for a touchdown. Kyler Murray continues to show that he's one of the more elusive and fun quarterbacks to watch. But I thought the Bills got it done, and they got it done, I think so. I mean, 17 points in the first half would not tell you this, but at the end of the day, I thought their defense really stuck it up. Russo with the 3 sacks, they really, really, really played well. But I'm going in a different direction. The Thursday night game, the Ravens and the Chiefs. What a slugfest that was, and maybe it wasn't the best game, but the drama of not only the last play, but what the whole leading up to it. And of course, there's the Kansas City, storyline that we're going to have to endure all season long, of them being the first 3-time Super Bowl winning team, that they're gunning for something that is never. You think of all the great teams we have seen over the years: Pittsburgh Steelers, their era, of course, the Dallas Cowboys, what they did, San Francisco's era,
dynasties.
Dynasties. You're right, dynasties. We could put that affix to, and there would be no doubt if they won 3 Super Bowls in a row, that would be the best dynasty of all time.
Yeah, and usually the three-peat always seems to be the measure of the when you want to be put in that pantheon of all-time great teams. It's so hard to do.
3 and 5 and 3 and 4.
It's always
never 3 in a row.
There's always that year that drops off. But the thing about the Chiefs is that no matter how, even though I thought they still played. They were a little sloppy. I mean, they tend to be a sloppy team in the regular season, then they turn it on in the postseason, and just squeak through every time. But that's the winning DNA that the Chiefs have. And I thought Baltimore they were still in there. Lamar Jackson. I thought Lamar Jackson played actually a pretty good game. He missed those 2 throws down the stretch, but then he made that great throw to it was Isaiah Likely.
Yeah.
And then he the toe on the line there. It was margins, and it's. What do you say about that? It's just what it is, and it was a great game. I thought Baltimore probably deserved a little better in the end, but. The Chiefs just again they did it again. They just did it again, and some things went their way. I thought the officiating wasn't all that great, but I don't know what it is, but with the defending champions, when it's opening night, they just always seem to walk away with victory.
Yeah, you got to give it credit. I have gone from being a Chiefs hater to respecting them at the very least. And you know what I gained respect for them was what they did last year. Going into Buffalo and beating Buffalo in a playoff game. Going to Baltimore and beating Baltimore in the AFC Championship. And then beating San Francisco, who were clearly, arguably, the best team in the regular season, and at least one of the more consistent teams. They really earned my flowers last year, so I can't hate them anymore, but I do respect them, and of course they're off to a great start. With that said, okay, now so much was going on that was, before I ask this next question, what about your team, the Steelers? Kind of a win. A win is a win, I guess, and especially when you're on the road.
You won without scoring a touchdown. I mean,
the Steelers, by the way, we're talking about here.
Yeah, you know what? It was funny. I was here yesterday working with Eric Viano, who happens to be a Falcons fan.
Yes,
ironically. And I thought the Steelers. I mean, the defense brought it. They went into the Eagles' nest there. I was going to call it the Georgia Dome. It's not the Georgia Dome anymore. But Pittsburgh's D looked pretty solid, and they looked pretty opportunistic. I thought the secondary was clamping down on a lot of their receivers, and there was a lot of pressure there. Justin Fields, he hung in there. There's still some growth there, but then again, the team is still. I think Pittsburgh's still far away from becoming a playoff team again. And
really?
I mean, they got some young pieces, but I just don't think there's still not enough there. And I believe blocking is still a major issue. The line, whether it's running and pass protection. I don't know if they're going to be good enough to carry the rest of the cast and to help really be a playoff caliber offensive line. I really don't see it, and I kind of wonder if this is why they signed Russell Wilson, who didn't play for obvious reasons. Is Russell Wilson there to kind of get the younger players,
the placeholder?
The placeholder, yeah, to help build them up, get their confidence up, get their experience going, kind of steady the ship, and then hand off the keys to Justin Fields, who also is still growing as a quarterback.
No doubt.
I don't see any issues with him as his ability to throw the ball necessarily. More, I'm not sure if he sees the field well enough yet, and that clearly comes through time. We know what it does when a quarterback is holding a clipboard and he's learning and he's developing. Very important that Justin Fields goes through that process, but in the end, they got the win yesterday. I know it wasn't the greatest game, but you always want to start off. You always want to win on week one. You don't want to go into that 0-2 category. Yeah. So a lot of work to be done, I think, from Pittsburgh's front. But hey, you won. It's week one. Usually anything happens on this week, so good for them.
All right. On the flip side of things here, which NFL result or performance, and I'll break it up into two categories or however you want to go, was the most disappointing or the most shocking?
I'm going to go disappointment, and that's the Pittsburgh's divisional rival, the Bengals. I mean, they're at home. Oh. And you know what? But I wouldn't say surprising, because I think the Patriots deserve a little bit of credit. Shout out to Gerard Mayo. Post Belichick, they're going back to like the Patriots to the old Patriots when they started their dynasty. Very defensive, very run ground, ground and pound. Stevenson in the backfield, and they ate up the clock. I think it was over 30 minutes of possession. That's you can win a lot of football games that way, and that's a very old school way of playing. And I know a lot of teams don't play like that. But it's actually kind of refreshing to see that style. Again, it's not sexy. It's not. It's probably not going to draw us too many eyes. But flipping back to the Bengals, they looked pretty disappointing, and it was Joe Burrow. I mean, all that money, and I had reservations about Joe Burrow coming into the season. I'm like, is he going to stay healthy? Is he really going to be a high productive quarterback? Somebody who's going to throw a lot all over the lot and throw 300 yards, 400 yards a game. I'm still I think he has I think he's got the winning DNA in him, but I don't know if he's going to be an efficient quarterback.
He's got to have Jamar Chase with him.
He's got to have Jamar Chase, and then I know his contract situation is still up in the air, right? What didn't he say something the other day about his contract?
Well, he didn't show up, and then he showed up for the last three practices of the week, right?
Yeah, this is that's kind of bad juju in Cincy. So they look disappointing, and I'm like, and 10 was it 16-10? Yeah. Very disappointing. I can't I think the Bengals might be in trouble this year, and so far I think they might be off to a bad start, and I don't know, they could be struggling again in the postseason. If they continue to look like that, 100%.
Two quick things. Most disappointing to me, and not that I thought they were going to win the game, but boy, Deshaun Watson, what's happened to him? Is he the same guy we saw in those first couple of weeks, in the first couple years of his career? What we saw at Clemson, it's a different guy, and I know obviously all the charges that he had to endure, and stuff that he brought upon himself when he was a member of the Houston Texans, but. Wow, he looks bad.
It looks bad. You know what? I know everyone was. I saw some tweets already. The worst contract in NFL history, and that may be justifiable to say. I don't know. I'm still not going to hold out on Deshaun. Clearly, something he looks off. He doesn't look the same. I mean, the guy in Houston was a completely different quarterback, like you said. I don't know. I mean, does Cleveland have? Where's the direction of the offense? I mean, the weapons are there. I don't know. I mean, I think that I could see Deshaun Watson maybe picking it up down the stretch of the season, but I mean, you don't want to fall into a hole that early.
But should it be that hard when you have a championship defense like that?
Yeah, at home too.
It should be pretty simple. You know what? Don't turn the football over. Maybe like you said, ground and pound. Got a great defense. Dominate on first down. I don't know, but the guy that we saw rolling, big strong arm, accuracy.
It's not there. I start to wonder if going back to I know the Browns get ripped on for giving him that contract, but at that time, even with pending all those charges, and there were a handful of teams going after him.
Sure.
Right? They're ready to kind of break the bank for him. I know Cleveland went over above and beyond, but think about Cleveland. Not many people want to go to Cleveland and say, hey, that's a destination. So by nature, by the circumstance of Cleveland, Ohio, I mean, they kind of had to overpay to get him if you really wanted to make a splash. And I mean, this is a franchise that's still kind of, you're trying to get past the Baker Mayfield, who, by the way, looked really good yesterday, beating the Commanders. 4 touchdowns, just on a side note. But you're looking to make a splash, and I think, and I know Cleveland's owner Haslam, like he's an aggressive dude, aggressive businessman, and he wanted to make that splash. But I mean, this is going to be on Deshaun, I think, and it's going to be up to him because now he's considered a veteran, at least a young veteran.
Sure, he is.
He's got to find a way to make those pieces work. And it's probably going to have to. Cleveland's probably going to have to go to that ground and pound, and they're going to have to be they're going to have to commit to that identity once again. And I think that will resonate too with the Cleveland fans. If as much as you're getting paid, I know everyone's thinking like, hey, he's supposed to throw like 30, 40 touchdowns. Think about winning football games, and I think that's where the mindset of I think Cleveland's got to be.
So I kind of split part of that. I mean, with the Sean thing, but the most shocking is to me. I'm just going to say this. 4 years, $240 million. Dak Prescott?
Yeah.
Like $60 million a year. Like, we're getting to NBA salaries now.
I know.
Like, okay, Dak is a winner. Dak has never really won, though, I will say that. Dak is a good quarterback. He's a leader. He has got to deal with being America's quarterback. And I know a lot of people don't like hearing that, but there is a focus and a central conversation about that other teams don't have to deal with. That kind of money is astronomical for a guy that's never won a Super Bowl. That's just my thought.
Yeah, and I guess you always have to ask, where is your team at right now? I mean, does Jerry Jones believe that this is a Super Bowl contending team? And I mean, the offense is there, and I think there is some enthusiasm about the defense to some degree. I don't know how good it's going to be this year, but I mean, $60 million. You're getting to the point where if you don't give them the money, who do you turn to? And it'll be a major downgrade. So I feel like this could go back to the Deshaun Watson situation, maybe to some degree, but you almost feel handcuffed. If you want to have a top quality quarterback, you're going to have to overpay. I don't know how the NFL is going to deal with this down the road, because the gap is just widening between quarterbacks and everybody else. So I mean, they don't have anybody else. I don't know if there's anybody else on that roster that's even that has any sniff to becoming a starting quarterback. So you're almost kind of handcuffed to Dak, and Dallas is already in that position where. Do
you consider him elite?
Second tier. I think he's second tier. And if you're second tier, you're going to get first tier money in this league. It's just that's what the market is already demanding. And I think the timing's kind of weird because he just, it's so recent and the season just started. They won yesterday. I mean, that's all that. That's what matters. But I don't know. I'm sure there's something in that contract, and I do find this interesting. How there's a lot of these quarterback contracts. Some of them, there's always a mechanism in there where they can get out after like maybe a third in or halfway in. So I'm sure there's some contingencies in case things go south.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean,
but they need a backup plan.
The number escapes me, but it's all about the guaranteed money, right?
Yeah.
Like you're already paid so much up front. Like it's like, okay, cut me. Someone else will grab me. I mean, it's going on there. Like it's other guys. There's seemingly a shortage of good quarterbacks in the National Football League.
There always is. Yeah, I always feel like there always. I mean, actually, but I think we're in a good. I think the NFL's in a. If you look at it from years past, I think the NFL's actually in a pretty good era of.
It's getting better for sure.
Of quality quarterbacks. Now, will I say are they? Do they are they close to the pantheon greats or have the potential to be there? I think that still remains to be seen. But in terms of stringing together a good product, because you need a good quarterback if you want to string together a good offense and something that's appealing to watch, I think there's a fair amount of good players, good quarterbacks out there. In terms of winning, it's a different story. That's as we see, Mahomes is the only one who seems to be monopolizing all that right now. So,
and he's nowhere near the highest paid, right? That's the funny thing. Brady, never the highest paid guy. Like, it's amazing to me. Hey, to address the lowest kickoff return rate in NFL history during the 2023 season and high injury rate on kickoffs, the National Football League has introduced what they've called the dynamic kickoff. You've seen it. Kickers are kicking from their own 35, which they always did, but now the opposing team that's going to return the ball, they're standing back at their own 35. The opposing team are just 5 yards in front of them, and then there's this kickoff zone where the ball has to land between the goal line and the 20-yard line. Confusing, but your thoughts about what they're trying to create here?
I mean, I get it because of safety. Even though it was all these years, sadly, sometimes those collisions are just like, it can make for great television, but safety is important, and you want to be able to see some players playing as long as they can, right? You don't want to see any, terrible injuries that happen, and they can happen, and they've happened many times in the past on those kickoff returns. It's going to take some time getting used to. Maybe they could have made it I think maybe they went a little too extreme, to how they. Because the momentum is gone there, so I think they should tweak it a little bit and have the players have a little momentum on the runs. Maybe not so much at full speed, but I don't know.
Talking about the gunners going down, or
you want to be able to reduce the gunners from flying down the field, but you don't want to cut the momentum of them running downfield. And if there is going to be a return touchdown, it's probably going to be off some poor tackling, some hodgepodge scramble, and some guy just slips out of there, right? They'll be awkward, but I don't know. I thought they may be a little too extreme on the change. I hope to see maybe a little bit of a tweak, and I wouldn't be surprised if there is. Okay. And they're probably going to do at least a season or two, and then enough people complain, I guarantee they'll change it to at least a little bit.
I'm amazed, actually, in that Bills game, there actually was a return that went for a touchdown, and you're right. I don't know how. Like, if you're on the kickoff cover team, you can't. You're right, because the guy, once the ball is caught, he's 5 yards in front of you, the blockers. It is really hard to gain a lot of momentum while you're standing like this or not in a three-point stance that you've got to go after. And, of course, you want to, the guys who are returning are going to build their gap. Like, you're right. Like, it really could be just one little quick block and a returner's gone. So now I think the league wants to increase the amount of kickoffs that go for a touchdown. But, boy, it gets real gadgety for me there, too. And if I'm on kickoff return or kickoff team, boy, I feel like I'm at a real disadvantage here. Now, the kickers, I think, is real interesting here because if you kick the ball and it goes out of bounds anywhere in that landing zone, we saw this in the Bills game, I think Bills game 2, where if it goes out of bounds, you're punished pretty hard. The ball goes to the 40-yard line. Like, that's pretty serious. That's great field position. Yeah. So,
but that's always been the rule, though, right? If you kick it in, there's a difference, though. I mean, I like how they make the adjustment with the whether you can start at the 30 or 20.
Yes, right. That's right.
And that was I do like those. I do like that kind of innovation. It's to incentivize, because I mean, for so long there were so many touchbacks, and it's just like, oh god. Ugh. And it just seemed so robotic. Mm-hmm. So I like where they're headed with it. I just think there might be it's going to take a season or two to change. And if you're a team, if you're a football team trying to deploy a return man, it's like, well, you better, have a guy that's got a good first gear, to get out if you want to be able to break out of that kind of static, stale position where you're trying to find a hole. So you want to be able to have a guy who has a good first gear to kind of find that quick exit, right?
Yeah,
find that hole. Yeah,
find that hole. Because you want that seam, right?
That separation is going to be hard to find because teams will schematically just kind of cover any sort of they'll be there to cover the gaps pretty much.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. Again, like I said, yeah, you're right. I think there will be some tweaking that goes along. And I think at the end of the day, sometime from now, maybe 5 years from now, if we're still here lucky enough to be chatting about this, I think there will be no kickoff. I think they will just spot the ball at the 35.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly where eventually this game, or at least the National Football League, I can't say about the CFL because it's such an important part of the game with the wide field. I think in the NFL, that's where they're going. CFL now, Sunday. Tiger Cats running back James Butler issued this statement on social media. Hamilton's fan base will forever have a special place in my heart. Here's the situation, Jason. Butler has not played since August the 10th. In his place, Greg Bell, who came off the practice roster, he's been pretty effective. Head coach Scott Milanovich says Butler hasn't played because he's banged up. What do you say?
I mean, he seems. I don't know. I really don't know what's happening with Butler. I mean, he's banged up. Has now I can't recall. Has Butler has he responded to that at all?
Well,
I don't recall him saying, confirming that.
No, he hasn't.
He hasn't confirmed it. So I don't. I mean,
this hasn't spoken to the media either. Like the Ticats are very controlled in the way who they speak to and whatever. So in this time, I think they have rules. If you're on a 1-game injury list, which they keep putting him on, you really don't talk to the media. But right. I mean, he has practiced. I'm assuming he's signaling that this is likely going to be the end. As you were mentioning before, trade deadline's approaching. Milanovich strikes me as someone who's going to want his guys. He's going to want a specific roster, and not so much of the coach as I'm open to seeing, hey, I'm going to experiment here and here and here. I think he already knows what he wants to do, and to me the writing seems to be on the wall for James Butler, which is sad because he's been a fantastic player. And I actually think he was probably their most valuable player on offense. My personal opinion, if you want to minus the quarterback, but in terms of a weapon, Butler's been the guy, and there's so much you can do with him, but I don't know what it is. I mean, Milanovich just seems very hard pressed on what he wants to do. He's got the control of the offense, and maybe the organization is pivoting to a mind frame of, well, trade deadline's coming, maybe we can ship him and Blosser somewhere else, and maybe there could be a good trade involved here if that's the case. And they're 6 points off from third against Toronto. I know the East is having a unprecedented year because maybe there's some belief that they can move him and maybe make a run to try to get that third spot. Yeah, it's strange to me because everything you said there is so true. James Butler is a good man. James Butler is a likable person. I've had him here at this station doing the morning show, I believe, doing Weather with Brian Wood, and he's a likable guy. The big smile, you see it even in the hardest of times. He's one of the guys that will speak up for the team, have been a leader in the community. You saw him recently with the autograph signing, and he's a fan favorite. There's no doubt about it. But at the end of the day, as we hear the saying, coach's decision, and the coach is the offensive coordinator also on this team, and I don't know if he's married to anybody. We saw the quick pull, what some people would describe as a quick pull for Bo Levi Mitchell after turning over the football, and something that he said is unacceptable for him. And Greg Bell has also assisted in this by playing rather well, right? Let's be honest here. He's played very, very well. We see these situations in football really more than any other sport. And you just said it about my guy or the guy I like. And Scott Milanovich is a new head coach. Maybe he likes Greg Butler and his style of running. I mean, there is some similarities between the two, but there is some would say that Greg Bell hits the hole a little bit harder instead of Butler likes to dance a little bit more and do these things. I think they would be just as productive as they have been, especially in these last couple of games. But boy, it's a sticky situation. And I'll tell you one thing I do know, I can't give you the exact numbers. James Butler makes more money than Greg Bell.
Well, that could be a fact. That clearly could be a factor. Think about just the disaster of of a start the Ticats had to the season. And Milanovic, you fired a special teams coordinator, you fired your defensive coordinator. It's almost like you're running out of people to fire, and the team has been such disarray. And now they finally strung a win together. They brought in Chris Jones. Things look a little revamped. They look a little bit better. Right now, I could understand Milanovic's mind frame, his mindset, as in what I just got to do what's best right now. I got to play somebody who's gonna give me the production right now. It doesn't matter who it is, just whoever's playing well, you're going in. But as maybe he saw something in Bell, and that maybe he wants somebody that's a little more packs a punch in between the tackles, because as the season goes on, I think that running game's going to be important. I know that sounds weird in the CFL, but trust me, I really believe the running game down the stretch of the season is important when the weather gets colder.
No doubt.
So he's probably going to want somebody, what you call that, cowbell back, right? And I don't know, he's under the gun. He's under the gun. I truly believe he is, and I think right now I think Milanovic has got to just take the best guys available, and whoever's playing well, and just go with that. Ride that wave, because you may have a shot here. You may.
In an interview with Sportsnet's Shai Davidi, Bo Bichette said these words. What I've had, and of course he's been injured for months now. When I had time to think about what I want, basically, my ultimate goal really is to play with Vladdy forever, to win a championship with him, and do that with this organization. Those are the words of Bo Bichette. What words do you have to respond to that statement, Jason?
Boy, that's a message to the organization. Meaning, I think he's really trying to force the organization to make a choice. I think it's right now the Jays are at the crossroad right now. It's time to make a choice. Are you going to ride with these young guys, or are you going to reload again? And frankly, if I'm Shapiro and Atkins, I think there's a tough decision to be made here, because you can't really, who are you going to turn to? Who are you going to turn to if you're going to let both Bichette and Vladdy walk, and or you ship them out, whichever way an acquisition is made?
That would be a disaster.
It would be
but both of them are probably going to.
But are they going to be worth the money? That's the thing. The Jays are just in a weird spot right now, and as a Blue Jay observer, I would say you might as well pay them and run it with them, because at some point, because the pain is going to be a lot more. It's going to be a lot more painful if you're gonna let those two walk, and you're going to try to patch together a team through free agency, through late season pickups, the ones who don't get picked up right away when it starts. And you have a farm system that's suspect at best right now.
Yeah, they're trying desperately to rebuild it.
Yeah, and it's clearly they're putting the decision on the organization. Make the choice. Make your decision now which way you want to go. Well, and I'm sure a lot of fans are feeling that way. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. That to me is a direct call out to the organization.
It really is. I think it is. It's like, look, I want to be here. Now, because he said those words doesn't mean he's going to be there. And that even means for him, too, because if he doesn't get an offer, which he thinks is representative of his skills and his commitment, because he's committed to the organization and his teammate, which his 1-2 guy, his Bobsey twin, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., we're going to do this going forward together. Like, he's saying everything, and he's put the ball in the court of the Blue Jays of Atkins and Shapiro, who are under so much heat right now from fans of this organization. Like, they're like, people don't want them coming back. Like, that's where it stands. So
yeah.
The problem is here, in my opinion, someone like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette, who are approaching, they have one more season before they're going to get paid real money. So it's got to be done. You don't want to go right into next year without having reorganized their contract or re-up their contract and say you are building blocks. It's gonna cost them, Jay, I think anywhere between $30 and $40 million each.
I will say
season.
that for sure, and either way they're going to get their money for that's for sure.
Yes.
However, though, you have to say though, Vladdy and Bo at times they. More so with Vladdy, but Bo, I think he's been up and down a little bit, but they haven't been the all-star quality players that we saw. I believe it was like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yep.
And you saw an ascension a few years ago. And it just kind of plateaued. And now this is where it's not just a crossroads in terms of Shapiro and Atkins as much blame as they deserve. Man, a lot of it's on the players. They have not delivered. So now as a Blue Jay fan, I think fans should ask themselves, given that they haven't been their all-star best, do you believe that they deserve $40 million a year? $50 million a year. I think Jays have to be honest and ask themselves that question, because you just can't keep blaming Shapiro and Atkins for everything. It's like if they give them this contract and they don't deliver, it's their fault for giving the contract? So I mean, you kind of have to. I think Blue Jay fans need to accept the reality of a decision saying, do you want? It's either rebuild or keep this team. And because I don't think there's an in-between. I really don't think there's an in-between. Well, I say sign them. I say sign them because you're better off trying with those guys than you will having to do a rebuild. Because if you do a rebuild, it's going to be 5 years, and that's going to be a lot of empty seats for too many seasons. And I know the organization, Rogers, doesn't want that. No doubt. But the crazy thing is in baseball, because it's 9 players on the field at the same time, right? And the pitchers, you want to pay them nicely, but they're once every 5 days, sometimes every 6 days, whereas we're seeing in baseball the way it works nowadays. You got to get more. They don't want to end up being like the Maple Leafs, where 4 guys are getting paid, and then the rest of the other 19 are getting, scraps, whatever they have. Yeah. Rogers has to, again, for another year, top 10 in payroll. People are already talking about go out and get Juan Soto as well too. And that's going to cost you another $40 million as well too over a long-term contract. So let's see what happens here. It's real interesting because I really do believe that he said, look, like I said earlier, I want to be here. It's up to you guys. Do you want me being part of this? I want to be part of it. And this is what separates the great front offices to the bad ones, is that every team should have to go to the scrap heap and find a diamond in there somewhere, or at least someone who has a potential to be a diamond, because that's somewhere along the line. If you want to be able to bring sustainability, you're going to have to go to the I hate to use the word cheap, or you're going to have to go to the most affordable places, and you have to kind of moneyball your way into building a roster a little bit. And this is why the farm system is important. So, I mean, is that Shapiro and Atkins' priority right now? I mean, try to keep this current team together while they get the farm system up and running and get some prospects, or, do you make some moves?
Well, I think that was what they tried to do in the trade deadline when they got rid of about 5 or 6 players. They did get some prospects, but again, that's going to take time. Belgian international and Manchester City midfielder Kevin De Bruyne has criticized FIFA and UEFA over their PAC 2024-25 football schedule, suggesting that they are prioritizing profits over the players' welfare. Of course, that would be health. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Big topic for someone. This has been I don't want to call it, not necessarily a controversy, but it's been an issue, concern for like many, many years. I mean, the soccer schedule is it's more jam-packed than it's ever been. And I thought it was jam-packed years ago. Like absolutely years ago, like going back to even the 90s, because, you think about all those matches, and now FIFA's been trying to get this World Club Cup off the ground, like a full tournament, for so many years. It used to just be the winner of the Champions League versus the winner the South American title, the Copa Libertadores. So, and they would go into a big match for a cup in, say like Asia or Dubai or something like that, and that would be the showcase and that would be the tournament. But they always wanted to get it off the ground because FIFA, they're about making money. I mean, the World Cup only comes every 4 years, so they're like, well, why don't we make another World Cup with the world's best soccer clubs? And they've been trying to get it I know they've been trying to get it off the ground and trying to figure it out. But right now, De Bruyne's got a point. I think something's got to give in terms of easing the workload, and it's probably gonna have to take a coordination with UEFA to kind of ease up that schedule. And I know they're just out of the Conference League, and which strangely enough, UEFA used to have 3 tournaments, the Cup Winners' Cup back in the day, and they scrapped that, and then that kind of eased things up, and now they brought in this tournament. So at this point, it's going to take some coordination between some of the top leagues, some of the top domestic leagues. It's going to take UEFA and it's going to take FIFA to kind of organize something, because if they really want to get this off the ground, there might have to be an international break. Might have to be an international break. You don't want to have this tournament going into the summer, because a lot of these players, they only have their summer vacation's 3 weeks, and they're back in training.
It's insane. I mean, I'll look at City, for example, and De Bruyne in particular. And remember, this guy missed 5 months last year due to injury. Okay, so in the Prem, you already have your 38 games there that you got to play. Then you have the FA Cup in there. Then the Carabao Cup. And then if you're City, you got to play in this, like you said, this Cup, World Cup, whatever it's called. UEFA. Now they don't qualify for UEFA because they're in Champions League. But then for other teams, there's UEFA, and then there's Champions League. Am I leaving anything else? You got to play for your national team. Yep. If you're a guy like De Bruyne, you're going to play for Belgium, right? Or Doku, you're going to play for Belgium. And then there's not only just you're playing for your country in World Cup qualifying. Then there's the nations as well too. How much football? Remember, these are the better players that have to play all these games. These are the guys that people pay for, and ultimately, I would think your homage is yes to your country for sure, but ultimately you're getting paid from Manchester City in this case. Your first right of refusal has to be to them. And you're going to turn down your own country and say, look, I'm too tired? No, because you look really bad. Like, imagine someone, I don't know, a star player like Connor McDavid saying, I can't play for Canada because I'm just too exhausted. It would be inexcusable. He'd get ripped.
I personally wouldn't blame him. Yeah. Now, the thing about the soccer schedule is that it's super convoluted. You're talking about, if you think about, let's just take Man City, right? You have the Premier League, which is its own body. The FA Cup is run by the FA, which is the national body. The Carabao Cup is just a money-making machine that the Premier League had put in. They get a sponsor, and then it's like, okay, we make our own cup because the FA Cup belongs to the FA, while the Carabao Cup is the EFL, and they do their own tournament, and that goes the same thing with all the other countries. The Nations League was for international. I think the club bodies and the international bodies, they're trying to find a way to coexist, and they're running into problems with this. And I know the Nations League was brought in to eliminate the friendlies, because over the years, national teams, when they'd go on international break or international duty, the friendlies were kind of very lackluster, so they want to spice things up. The problem is now that they have an actual competition, now the national teams are they feel beholden to call their best players all the time for it. It's like, well, no, I'm like, this is where you need to, the Nations League should be replacing the friendlies, but this is where you have to be doing your testing out your other players and other
players.
A bigger pool of players, because
for sure.
UEFA and FIFA, they want to increase the quality of international soccer to almost to look like where the teams are looking like their club teams. Because you ever notice that everyone always complains, well, why does England look like this, and why does this powerhouse country, why do they look so bad? It's because they come together for an 8-game tournament, and they've only been together for like 2-3 weeks. The international bodies want to close that gap, but when they keep adding in more competitions, the clubs are not going to be able to handle that workload. And obviously the players are just like, this is too much. And which has already been an issue for so many years. And now it's just getting worse. It's exacerbating. I could definitely see them demanding maybe they might make commitments to their national team saying, like, I'm only going to be available for these windows ahead of time. But that's the only way it can make sense at this point.
There has to be some changes. And let's not even forget, too, that some of these teams all over, especially a lot of the European teams, during the offseason, they have these tournaments where they got to go to the United States.
I forgot about those.
It's more football.
Showcase tournaments. Like, it's I mean, like, this, no wonder these players only last, like, typically, I mean, what, 10, 12 years? A player
if even, right? And,
legs.
And people in the United States are paying top dollar to see some of these teams, and it's gotten to the point that a lot of these teams won't even carry some of their better players because they're like, I enough already. Like, I got to hang out with my kids and my wife a little bit, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Hey, I got to seek this one on you because we were kind of, you in particular were talking about this Michigan and their 16-game win streak, and it ends up coming to an end after losing 31-12 to Texas at the Big House, and now they've dropped from number 9 to 16 in the coaches poll. Fair or foul?
That's fair. Trust me, Michigan's offense is not that good. They are totally different from last year. But the defense is still there. I was a little surprised though. Texas went into the Big House and did that to them, but at least by that score. And which, by the way, credits to, I think Texas is a national contender right now. But I think Michigan's going to go through a tough period. Expect them to. I think they might even drop down down lower than 10. They're not the same team. They're not going to be the same, especially in a crowded Big Ten now, even more than ever. And they, they're going to have to. They're definitely going to have to find their next quarterback. They don't.
You don't like McCarthy, do you?
No. Well, McCarthy's. I mean, even McCarthy last year, I thought he was a pretty solid quarterback. I don't know how great he is as an NFL prospect, but they're going to have to. Their scouting is going to have to find someone to kind of turn it around. Unless they're going to maybe grab more an athletic quarterback and run some heavy option and go like run heavy and try to slow the game down against their opponents, because I still think their defense can kind of keep them in games. But as if they accept what happened here in Texas, they can't allow that kind of that many points at home in the Big House. So. Plus, their new coach is being tested. I know Harbaugh's gone.
How do you become like? And we see this in sports all the time. That when you have to sort of, you're the first guy after what we'll call a legend, right?
Yep.
Like that's an impossible job.
So, and the pressure is going to be, it's off a national championship season. The pressure is mounting. Like, you have to, if your coach is going to leave, you got to make sure, and it's not just the coach, but it is the offense. Unless Michigan can find a way, if they can average like 20, 25 points a game, if they can get into that range, they can probably win some games in their conference. I don't know if they have enough, because Ohio State beat up on a powder puff this weekend, but I just don't know if they're going to have enough to beat Ohio State, and that's the game they circle on their calendar. It's the last game of the regular season. Ohio State, Michigan, and they have to prep for that game and I noticed too now that the playoff has expanded, I started wondering, there were so many upsets this weekend. Northern Illinois.
Oh, my
Lord.
Goodness.
Oh, my. I wonder if a lot of the top schools are taking their foot off the gas, where they're not so concerned about playing, not being their best at the beginning of the season, because it used to be you lose one game, you're in trouble. You may not even get into the playoff or be invited to the national.
Notre Dame can't lose that game.
Well, now because the pollsters are going to you want to talk about someone who's going to drop down, it's going to be Notre Dame. They're going to ding them hard for this, because when you lose to an unranked team, a small school, a regional state school, it's bad. At home, when the Irish get booed off their own field, it is bad news. And now, because they're an independent, they're going to have to rely on the pollsters to put them through. I don't know. This is going to hurt them. And this, believe it or not, I'm not one loss. Like right now, the way it is, one loss cannot really hurt you if you're a powerhouse team. But that loss could technically hurt Notre Dame. 'Cause they really could.
We talked a little bit about sports wagering, which has become the latest thing right now. And I've told you I kind of fascinated about it, but I'm still on the outside looking in at guys like yourself. And the one thing that really interested me as you were talking about to me this week was this Indiana and Curtis Rourke. Curtis Rourke, the younger brother of Nathan York of the BC Lions, that he obviously, and I've read about him and his NFL prospects, and he seems to be kind of favored a little bit more because he's a taller guy. Some believe he has a stronger arm than Nathan, and I believe the spread on whoever Indiana played was 44, and you said you were all over it, and I am shocked. Well, how do you cover a spread of 44?
I was looking into the Hoosiers, which is, who would have thought they're a football school? Well, I mean, they've had an okay football program, traditional basketball school. But I from what I understood, is that they brought in a lot of transfers this year. They're actually they blasted their offense, and they got some weapons. Rourke's got some weapons, and he's going to be able to throw it all over the lot this season. They're probably going to make a run in their conference. They are going to make a run. They're going to be able to put up some points. I think there was a little concern that at the beginning of them stringing their offense together because there's so many new players. But believe me, watch out. I was like, I go 44. They're going to pump this team 70. And look, I told my friend, I told my cousin, I texted him, I said, hey man, I go, Indiana's dropping 70 tonight. You watch, and it happened. It happened. So there, but believe honestly, I say this in all honesty. Give the Indiana Hoosiers, watch them. They're going to be an exciting team to watch. If you like college ball, watch them. They're good.
That's your tip of the week, folks. Jason, awesome stuff talking sports with you. And I just said, I'm on the outside in. Maybe one day I might do a little peek and might do a little parlay or something, but
it's only because, and also when I look into that, I'm forced to look into the actual the tacticalness of football and knowing who's who and what this team does. So it forces me to actually get to know the teams from a football sense rather than just saying like, oh, everyone's picking this team. So I do a little digging on who's there. And
I see you.
Yeah, I look for which schools brought in big transfers, especially from the quarterback position, because you're going to need a big time quarterback. So I kind of watched out who's who and who brought in what, because there's transfers are happening more than ever. Not so often in the past, but now it's like the normal thing, and guys are switching schools, saying I'm going to go play for this school because I'm going to go play. I'm going to get all the playing time, and NFL scouts are going to look at me if I play there. So it's interesting stuff. Curtis Rourke, I like him.
A lot of people do. I love listening to you and our guy Dave Roberts here as well too. He's all over the spreads and stuff like that. And of course, I just do a little pick 'em pool for the NFL stuff. But the point spread stuff is scares me. It just scares me.
The point spread. The only reason I say point spread is because there's when you bet straight up on college, there's the bookmakers put so much juice, what we call juice, like you have to put in like so much money to get a good return, and because they're so heavily favored almost. So you have to, if you happen to be a wager, you have to, for college, you have to look at those point spreads if you're looking to make a buck, basically. Because there's the it's so lopsided between a lot of teams, right? Unless it's two good teams playing together.
I'll be watching you from here on in. All right, but hey, thanks for coming in and talking sports with us. It's always fun.
Great stuff. I love it.
All right, folks. Hey, that's your Sportsline podcast for the day, and you just love to hear the passion. We're talking sports, and we're talking about all kinds of different sports. National Football League is here, and of course, that elicits all kinds of opinions. So that's why we do have the Sportsline Square-Off. Hey, if you do know of an athlete, team, or event to promote, the Sportsline podcast do want to hear from you. Please hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. And if you do have something to say, hey, maybe you got something to say about the National Football League, the CFL, the Butler situation here in Hamilton, please comment. For the wonderful people that make the Sportsline podcast possible, thank you so very much. And we'll see you tomorrow.